Peace. This is Jamal Robinson with 720astrology.com. Today's date is February 20th, 2024, and at the time of recording this, it's 11:40 a.m. Central Standard Time. Today's discussion is the Sun, Pluto, and the astrological Christ. I've been wrestling with this for a while, wanting to present this topic, and I just haven't been sure how I want to go about it. And then today it kind of gel together just how I want to present it. And it's basically going to be part of a series where the next portion of this will be raising the astrological Christ child and its parenting through the zodiac. And it's going to be based on simply on the sun sign, understanding the relevance of the sun sign and how it can help parents in with helping their children become the best version of themselves. But that's down the road. For right now, we're going to deal with what we're dealing with, and it is the Sun, Pluto, and the astrological Christ. When we mention Pluto and the Sun, they naturally have a connotative alignment with the concepts of good and evil. We, especially in the Western world, associate evil with that which is hidden or secret or buried under the ground. It's interesting that the word evil traces back to the root upo and upa, and it is from that root we get the word Upanishads. But upa really means jewels, hidden jewels. So even the word evil is talking about hidden treasures, hidden things of value that are buried. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. And growing up, especially if you grew up with a religious leaning, we were all taught that this underworld represented something evil, connotatively evil, a place of punishment, a place of pain and suffering. And it was like a karmic response to the way you lived your life or the failure to adhere to God's commands, God's laws. But when you peer deeper, you'll find that Pluto, in its association with the underworld and so called evil, that it is closely aligned with the sun in its association with a Christ figure, i.e., good or pleasantries. What I hope to show with this brief discussion is by looking at these two archetypes, I hope to show that they are more so one and the same than they are actually different. And to start out, I want to reference some scriptures from the Sun Book, Helios Biblios, Sun Book, Holy Bible. We first go to, in the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 45, verses 3 through 7. It reads, "And I shall give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that it is I, Jehovah, who call thee by the name, even the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel my chosen, I have called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. I am Jehovah, and there is none else besides me, there is no God. I will gird thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none besides me. I am Jehovah, and there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I am Jehovah that doeth all these things." So, where does this leave space for a devil? If here in the book it says that Jehovah creates good and evil, light and darkness, where is that space for a devil? And if the same source creates the good and the evil, then these two planets that we would more so associate with good and evil actually must be one and the same. But that's not enough. Let's keep going. Job. We're going to start at chapter 1, then we'll jump and read some of chapter 2. I'm going to start with chapter 1 because I want you to get framework for the main character, who is Job. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and turned away from evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance always was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the children of the east. And his sons went and held a feast in the house of each one upon his day. And they sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. Okay. So we see basically this guy is an upright person. He has a good life, but he also is an adherent to the God he serves. All right. So, but he has not faced evil. He hasn't turned towards evil. He hasn't experienced evil. Now, again, going back to the Upanishads, and Upa is the root of the word evil, we can deduce that this is also saying he has not actually gone into his subconscious region to really determine who he is because he hasn't been through enough to actually transform him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go down. Now it came to pass. This is chapter 1 verse 6. It says, now it came to pass on the day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Jehovah, that Satan also came among them. And Jehovah said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered Jehovah and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Listen to this language. And Jehovah said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered Jehovah and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it, inside. Now, what we must know is that earth, one of the Hebrew words for earth is Adamah. Adamah, the root of Adamah is Adam. So when we look at Adam, Adam is not talking about a person and not a man. It's a race, it's a people, it's man. But it also shows that man is also referred to earth. Earth and man are one and the same, which is a symbolic language. Esoterically, when he's talking about walking in earth, inside of here, and in the underworld of earth, this is all pointing to the subconscious mind of man. Okay. And to pick back up, then Satan answered Jehovah and said, okay, no, verse 8. And Jehovah said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? For there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and turneth away from evil. Then Satan answered Jehovah and said, doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thy hand and now and touch all that he hath, and he will renounce thee in thy face. And Jehovah said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath in is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Jehovah. Now, skipping to chapter 2, it's going to reiterate this. Again, it came to pass on the day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Jehovah, that Satan came also among them to present themselves before Jehovah. And Jehovah said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? And Satan answered Jehovah and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Jehovah said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? For there is none like him in the earth, in the earth. So Jehovah really wants to put this work on Job. Now, Jehovah is supposed to represent the good, and Satan is supposed to represent the bad. And Satan has been walking to and fro in earth. Pluto is the lord of the underworld, which would be in earth, in Adama, in Adam, subconscious mind. So Job ain't been through enough shit yet. He has not delved into the inner workings of his nature. He's been able to function purely on his egoistic desire to be good, but he hasn't been tested to see what he's really made of yet. And so Satan needs to be enlisted to help Job see what he's really made of. I'm going to stop right there. I had some other scripts, uh, passages I wanted to read, but that's enough. That's enough for our opening volley into this conversation. And with that, I want to go to the whiteboard and we're going to look at the glyphs for the sun and Pluto. This is the sun. Okay. The sun has an outer shell. It's like almost drawing an electron or an atom. And this ring is like the first, what do they call it? The first electron shell. I can't remember what they call those again, but this is where you will find some of the electrons that will be orbiting a point in the middle, which would be called the nucleus. In the world of metaphysics, this would be called the black dot. All right. It is the central intelligence. It's the soul that is driving all the activity out on the outer shell. Now, the sun is radiating light out from a core. The word core is where we get the word heart from, because that's what heart is. It's the core, it's the center. Now, what we see from a person's sun sign is what is radiating out, but we don't always see the true nucleus or the core or the heart of a person's sun sign, because that outer shell, that this area out here, is ego. It's what radiates from the core. And a lot of times that can be altered to protect what's at the core, or it can be altered because what's at the core has not actually been acknowledged or it is not known. And that's key. That's key, because the sun, which is the primary luminary of our solar system, it's the star. It's the namesake of our system, solar system, sun system. It illuminates, it lights things up. But this is the agent of darkness. Pluto in the Greek mythology is Hades, and Hades wears a helmet that covers his eyes. So the question is it really dark in the realm he's in, or is it just the fact that he can't see? Either way, he's associated with darkness. And by the fact that he cannot see, it means that he is operating by insight, by feeling, by intuition, by programming. It's the subconscious mind. Now, these two on the surface couldn't be any more opposite to each other. The sun is the chief luminary, and Pluto lives in darkness. I say, though, they are one and the same. And the scriptures I've read give credence to that these Kabbalists who wrote these scriptures were conveying this. If you read between the lines, again, this is coming from the Sun book, which is an astrological book, amongst other things, but has a lot to do with astrology. And these archetypes are anthropomorphized into characters. Now, if we get caught up in believing in the characters, we can miss the esoteric jewels that are being conveyed in these passages. In the earth, in it, evil, turning away from evil, meaning I have not dealt with my actual soul. I have not dealt with my underworld. I haven't been through something. Pluto, if we see here, shows us whenever we see the cross, it is, for one, representing matter, because we have, if we look at a zodiac, at the zodiac wheel, you'll see there's a line running east and west. That's called the horizon. And the horizon line separates the upper world from the underworld. That's why when you're looking at a chart, houses 1 through 6 represent your underworld, how you're being developed so you can then come out into the world. Seventh house, 7 through 12th is you operating in the world, but 1 through 6 is your underworld. Okay, so this line then is a line of dissension and ascension. But before there can be ascension, which is going up, there must be descension, which is going down. So an incarnation represents the descension through the horizon line down into the world of matter. And then we ascend back out, hopefully. Now, this part of the Pluto glyph is the ark, which always harkens back to the womb, some type of birth. The ark is feminine, brings life forth. It's a doorway. A doorway for what? What is it giving birth to? This is the soul. And this here is the same as this in the middle of the sun. So Pluto and the sun are one and the same. Pluto takes the sun into the realm that it is most uncomfortable, the realm where its light can't be seen, the underworld. And as the sun goes into that world, it still maintains its life-giving principles, but it has to fight to realize them. The roots of a plant don't receive direct sunlight, but they are still influenced by sunlight. And if there is no sunlight, then there will be no life-giving activities deep down in the soil. Because even though the sun can't be seen, it has an electromagnetic field that is still impacting and permeating deep into the soil, because the sun represents vitality. We cannot have a purely Plutonian reality, nor can we have a purely solar reality, because the sun will burn everything up if it does not have a balancing act or a counterbalance to it. If there's no balance to Pluto, then everything will remain depressed and pushed down, and it will never have a realization of its true power. If Job is not taking on this arduous journey that he's put through, which seems like just useless torture. The man is serving you. He's doing everything right. Why do you have to do this? Because the sun eventually burns out. It must die. That's why the sun must cross. It must cross the equinox to regenerate itself. It regenerates itself through death. We regenerate ourselves through ego death, through Pluto, which is the agent of ego death, but it's actually working hand in hand with the sun. This is an important, I think, important conversation right now, because I'm talking to people who are preparing to go into the valley of the shadow of death. And I'm speaking metaphorically, people who feel like they're having to make a career decision, they're having to make a relationship decision, they're having to entertain aspects of their own nature that they have not been wanting to see, that they've been in denial of. And they come and they ask you for answers about what's going to happen in the future. What's going to happen in the future? When that's not the question. The question is, what am I to learn? That's the question. Where is the path leading me? And that's what Pluto does. It creates discomfort because the sun wants to shine, rightfully so. But Pluto helps the sun to fortify its own light by stripping it away. And Pluto is now in Aquarius and opposing the sun's house. So Pluto is making the collective examine their own light by maybe it being dimmed for a moment so that it can regenerate itself by knowing itself truly. You don't really know what you are until you've been through some shit. I'm not giving you conjecture. I'm telling you from experience. You don't know, and you don't know what's on the other side, which is oftentimes something greater than you could have ever expected. But Pluto forces us to go on a journey, a rough one. Okay, further evidence. Biblically, one of the terms for Christ in the Old Testament or the Torah, one of the names for Christ is Mashiach. Okay. And we're going to do this by examining some Hebrew. Mashiach is a mem, shin, yud, and a hey. And those add up to 358. Now, Mashiach means anointed. Now, if you go to Genesis, the whole story of original sin from a biblical standpoint is based on Adam and Eve being beguiled and swayed by the serpent. Okay. Now, the word for serpent in Hebrew is nakash. So it's a nun, it's a hit, and a shin, and that adds up to 358. Now, Pluto in modern astrology rules Scorpio, the ruler of Scorpio. One of the animals associated with Scorpio is the serpent, which would be Nikesh. Now, Mashiach, which is Christ, when we know that's associated with the sun, which is also the ruler of Leo. So here's another example by using language that gives us another clue that shows a connection between the sun and Pluto. Pluto and the sun are one in the same. And let me while I'm thinking about this, let me say this. I have a quote from Idris Shah. It says, "Wisdom is when you understand what previously you only knew." And I want to give you an example. And this is even for me, and this may apply to you. You're learning astrology. And one of the things when you're learning astrology is you look at the attributes of the planets and you learn the key words about the planet associated with the planets. And one of them for Pluto is destruction. And then we all like little parrots go and repeat. Pluto is about destruction and it's about it tears things up and it's the wrecking ball because we hear other astrologers and we read it in. But wisdom is when you understand what previously you only knew. That's perfectly correct about Pluto being destructive. But here's the wisdom. When you sit with it and you live with it and you get another perspective, and it's the same thing, but you can shift the language. Destructive is such a triggering word. And I used to even sit when you're talking to clients, when you say a word like destructive, you can watch people tense up. My whole life's about to fall apart. And so even as astrologers, we got to be careful in our language. So I had to learn a while ago, you got to meter how you present this stuff. Here's a better way to explain Pluto. It is a key agent in digestion. And it hits us a little differently. It doesn't pierce as much like Pluto is destruction. You about to have all types of shit go on in your life and no, digestion. The sun is vitality. And so how do planets eat? Not planets, plants. How do plants eat? They convert sunlight into energy through photosynthesis. It is an alchemical process of taking light and converting it into nutrients. Okay. We eat those plants. We're eating the work that they've done. We're eating the alchemical process that they've gone through. Animals eat the plants. So even if we consume animals, we are still consuming light code through them. Now, that food has to be received, which is the sign of Cancer, because it's the stomach. And then it must go through a digestion process, which begins with Virgo, because Virgo sifts through all the details. That has protein. We need that. Come with me. We don't need all that extra. You go here. Here's where Pluto comes in as a ruler of Scorpio. Pluto says, all right, for you to really be able to function based on what has been extracted that your body's going to utilize, we got to flush the stuff away that we have determined is waste, because by getting waste out of the body, it supports the body's vitality. And vitality is associated with what? Ding, 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 the sun. It's just that Pluto lives in a world that we don't want to, because nobody wants to smell, waste and feces. And it's a very private thing. That's why the name of the bathroom is the privy. We want to go in the privy and be in private, and everybody wants to convince everybody that they don't shit. Everybody takes a shit, or else you couldn't live. If you don't take a dump, if you don't urinate, the elimination of waste, you have no life force. So the Nakesh is in support of the divine evolution of man. So-called Satan is in support of the mission of Christ. The devil and Satan are in communion with what we call God. And we need to experience both sides in order to actually be living and to be alive. And it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. But remember, if you just think about the analogy of eating and digestion, sometimes our struggles in life are more so about our inability or refusal to digest our food. And we keep trying to feed ourselves and feed ourselves and feed ourselves. And we haven't been to the restroom in 3 days and we're backed up so that our bodies can't even take in any food and extract the nutrients and actually pull out the life-giving benefits because there's stuff in the way. So Pluto is supporting the sun. Pluto is an agent of life. Pluto, modern ruler of Scorpio. The word Scorpio means death connotatively, but denotative means when we deal with the origin. Connotative means how we believe a word to be, how we feel about it, which is not really the actual truth. The denotative gets close to mama, its origin. Denotatively, Scorpio means live. The sun is associated with vitality, which is living life. To be vitalized is to have life. And the planet that seems to be the agent of death rules the sign whose etymological meaning is life. Now, some more evidence. Some more evidence. We're going to take the word Christ and take it back to its Greek rendering, Christos. Now, Christos also has the suffix of Mashiach. Now, Christos Mashiach is associated with Scorpio and connotatively with death. But Christos Mashiach, which would be, is associated with Leo, which means to live. Now I want to give you a reference. You want to get Who is This King of Glory by Alvin Boyd Kuhn. And this is where I got this scholarship from. Top tier scholar. He wrote in the, I guess early to almost mid 20th century. Now, another rendering of Christ is, and this is going back more ancient to Kemet, i.e. Egypt, where we get crest, and crest then gives us the word Kadast, and Kadast is the same. I'm not going to try to write all this. It's the same. It's the name of the mummy babe in the coffin. The term Kadast means mummy babe in a coffin. So what would the coffin be? This human body. This is the coffin. This is where Christ is buried, in a shallow grave. It's here. An actual location here, the heart. Now, when you read in the Bible, it says Christ is born in a manger. Manger is where animals are living. So, where animals live, they defecate. So this is the kind of underworld type of environment. Now, when you go to the infancy gospel found in the lost books, it says he's born in a manger, but in a cave. Cave in scripture or mystical writings is talking about, for one, the subconscious mind, the deep inner workings of the mind. So our body represents a coffin where the soul is hidden, which is the Christ. And we're also talking about the subconscious mind, the underworld, which is the realm of Pluto. We must go into Pluto's realm in order to truly become and to have everlasting life. We must die. That old Sufi saying, if you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. It references this relationship between the sun and Pluto. We should be dying over and over in our lives, shedding skin. That's what Pluto helps us do. Pluto helps us to continuously shed skin. Pluto, as it is related to Nakash, the serpent. We're learning to continuously shed skin. And every time we shed, we come out anew, a newborn babe, a new Christ, a new son, newly revitalized. That's how we work with this in our charts. That's how we work with it in relationship, all aspects of life. Pluto invites us to learn how to let shit go so yet you may live. Of course, there are other things that I could go on and on with this, but I'm going to stop right there. I think it's enough to kind of at least maybe wet the palate and get the wheels turning. The sun, Pluto, and the astrological Christ. one and the same. Well, I appreciate you tuning in, and I ask you to like the video, subscribe if you feel compelled, and especially share if you feel compelled. I do appreciate your comments, your likes, your subscription, and you sharing. As always, I'm available for private readings through my website, 720astrology.com. Know the stars to know yourself. Peace.